Jamaica is a wonderful tropical island with many beautiful beaches, turquoise waters, and amazing fresh foods. Today we will get an exclusive look on all the different natives that have gone through Jamaica. But before that, I will tell you a little bit more about Jamaica. The population in Jamaica is 2.91 million people, and the language is mostly English and African. Jamaica is the third largest Caribbean island and has some of the world's best beaches. So who were the first people to discover this beautiful island? To answer this question, take a look below. The very first people to inhabit this island about 600 years ago. The Arawaks were a type of Indian group that had their own language and were a very small group. After a while, Christopher Columbus discovered the island, and it was inhabited by the Spanish in the early 16th century. 5 years later, the English took over and they built a plantation that developed sugar, cocoa, and coffee. The English were the last group of people to stay on the island up until today. Of course, a lot of different people have come and gone over time, but that is why the language is English, because that was the main language of the island. Since the Arawakans were the very first people on the island, the first language there was Arawakan, and it was not a common language. But then when Christopher Columbus took over the island, the language had changed to Spanish, but not for long. About 5 years later, the English came and of course changed it to English. The English were the last group of people on the island, so the language had stayed English throughout the years. Groups of people affected the land over time in many ways. First, since the Arawaks stayed there the longest, they had built a lot of structures that were still there when Christopher Columbus came. In the 5 years that the Spanish stayed there, they did not build that much, just houses and some buildings. The real change came when the English came. The English built the first plantation with cocoa, sugar, and coffee. The English continued to build all different types of buildings up until today.
The refreshing, beautiful island Jamaica may be really small, but so many characteristics are packed in it. Amazing wide sandy beaches, summer sun, calming breeze, the gorgeous palm trees, and the salty oceans coming up to your feet, slowly cooling them. This country has much history, and the population of 2,813,000 people help make it up. So does a 415 species, not including insects. But one thing puzzles me, and I'm sure a few others too. Have you ever just thought that the Arawaks, the natives, influence the government today somehow?
Natives, Arawaks, also known as the Tainos, played a huge part in the Jamaican government, and in general. They brought many things to Jamaica: crops, housing, gold, trade, and etc. They grew tobacco, maize, yam, and cassava, main crops in Jamaica, making them the most money and changing the government. Also, the Arawaks brought strategies to Jamaica, teaching how to build sturdy and reliable housing structures, which have a big effect on the government because Jamaicans can build houses besides buying one. Arawaks traded few things such as tools and weapons, clothes, food, gold, and furniture, also shaping and building Jamaican's government and playing a big role.
Government.
Jamaica's government is constituent monarchy, parliamentary system, and democracy, all shaped by the Arawaks. Their constitutional monarchy was influenced by the Arawaks, chiefs, and leaders. Democracy shaped by the Arawaks' belief in having free rights, usually, but last are parliamentary, formed by different groups. All of these types of government have made Jamaica, Jamaica. Connections. How does today Jamaicans live? What was influenced by the Arawaks? Food and culture are a big thing in Jamaica, a main thing and a big deal. The Arawaks brought many crops to Jamaica, making them a lot of money. What they technically did was just bring their culture. As the country began to grow, few things changed. Of course, that even happens to our economy. But many things stayed as well, such as techniques for crops, money making in specific ways, and their ways, which influenced later their government. My focus question. Exactly. How did the Arawaks influence today's government? My journey to answering this question was challenging but informational. They influenced today's economy in many ways. They helped form the different forms of government, which means a lot to their country. They also brought crops to Jamaica, like tobacco, which makes a lot of money for them. That does also change the government. With more money, there's so many things the government can do with it. They can also have a negative effect on the government. They brought many strategies to Jamaica, including making housing out of natural resources, like wood. Right when the government thought they were going to sell that one house, trying to make some money, the government loses it because the Jamaicans make their own houses. They also helped the people live in general, making tools and weapons. knowing what food to eat, and etc. Conclusion.
One of my big questions have finally been answered, and many more I hope will be answered as well. The Arawaks had many influences, but Jamaica's government is definitely affected by the natives. I wonder else what they affect.
Hi, this is Brock Miller, and I'm going to teach you about Jamaican slavery. These two slaves are working on farming. As you can see, there's a few owners that cover and make sure that slaves are doing their jobs. If not, they will end up as a prisoner, which there is going to be a picture of. Some slaves, when they escape, they become landowners and they do very well in the business. But when they get caught, they normally end up on boats and get shipped away and traded. There's some more on crop work. Also, owners might take slaves and make sure they're chained up so that way they can't leave. The owners also want to feel very appreciated on how they treat slaves. So slaves would do very hard in crop work, surprising the owners, that way they don't get killed. There's also many slaves. There's not just like 6 or 7, there's like probably 245, something like that. There's the prisoner who tried to free but didn't get it. Here's some more where the owner is telling what the slaves to do. And as you can see, the chains are there. Slaves are cutting down the crops for the owners, same as this picture. The next picture is trading, where they trade the slaves. It's very interesting because how they traded slaves was so much different than how we do it now. Here's some slave doing crop work. You can also be sold if you don't do your work, or you could be punished by death. They're having a group meeting in this, and it's very interesting. This is a slave pulling sticks with other animals. This is crop work. This is a owner opportunity to be traded. And this is crop work. Hope you liked my video.
Jamaica is a beautiful country as we know it. The country has white sand beaches, great music, food, and is a great place for tourists. But is its history as pleasant? So, how did slaves fight for freedom? In the life of economics, Jamaica exports a lot of sugar, even in its history. With a country this rich in sugar, it's nearly impossible not to have slaves in the 1800s. When the English came over, the people of Jamaica were immediately put to work.
So what do you think about slavery?
I think that it was really unfair to the people and that it really never should have been allowed.
What are your thoughts on slavery?
I think slavery is an awful thing, and I think it should have never happened.
As you can see from the interview above, people aren't too spirited about slavery, and I'm sure we can all agree. That's why someone decided to do something about it. Samuel Sharp was a Baptist preacher that bought his freedom and spoke around the world. After being freed from slavery, he learned to read and write so that he could make a difference and end slavery. Samuel Sharp knew that putting innocent people to work was wrong, so he led the slave uprising on December 27, 1831. All the slaves agreed not to return to work until they were rewarded with basic freedoms and a living wage. It all went wrong, and this peaceful protest quickly turned to war. Many slaves died, along with some slave owners. A lot of Jamaicans were publicly executed, including Samuel Sharp. I'm sure we can all agree that slavery is unacceptable, but it is a part of Jamaica's history, and without it, the country wouldn't be how it is today. With the slave uprising, slavery was close to an end for Jamaica.